I was 17 years old when I learned what it feels like to die alone. Not the physical kind of death, though that was close enough, but the kind where your own mother looks at you bleeding on a gurney and sees nothing but an inconvenience. The hospital lights were too bright, searing through my half-closed eyelids, and somewhere beyond the ringing in my ears, I could hear voices shouting about internal bleeding and fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. My body felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. But what I remember most clearly wasn't the pain. It was the coldness in her voice when she said, "If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for this paperwork." She didn't even say my name. Just it. Before I continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing more. The accident happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays were the days Mom always took my younger sister Vanessa to the spa for their mother-daughter bonding time. Mani-pedis, facials, whatever they felt like that week. I was never invited. I'd stopped asking why years ago. That particular Tuesday, I was riding my bike home from my part-time job at the library when a delivery truck ran a red light. I don't remember the impact. I remember the color of the sky, that pale gray that comes right before rain. And then I remember waking up to fluorescent lights and strangers in scrubs cutting away my shirt. Someone was pressing something against my ribs, and it hurt so badly I couldn't even scream. I tried to ask for my mom, but all that came out was a wet, choking sound. They called her 3 times before she answered. I know because I heard the nurse say it to someone else. Third attempt, finally picked up. When she arrived an hour later, she still had the cucumber slices smell on her hands, that expensive spa lotion she always used. Vanessa was with her, holding a smoothie, looking bored, and scrolling through her phone. The doctor tried to explain the situation. I needed emergency surgery. There was internal bleeding. They needed parental consent immediately. Every second mattered. My mother sighed like he'd just asked her to stay late at a PTA meeting. She glanced at me once, just once, and I saw it in her eyes. Nothing. No fear, no concern, just irritation. I'm in the middle of something, she said, checking her watch. Can't this wait? The doctor's face went pale. He explained again, slower this time, using words like life-threatening and critical condition. My mother's jaw tightened. She hated being told what to do. Vanessa tugged on her sleeve. Mom, I'm hungry. Can we go? I wanted to reach out. I wanted to beg, but my throat was filling with something warm and metallic, and all I could do was stare at the woman who was supposed to love me. The doctor held out the consent forms. Ma'am, we need your signature right now, or your daughter could… She cut him off. If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for this paperwork. The room went silent. Even Vanessa looked up from her phone. The nurse standing beside me actually gasped. I felt something crack inside me that had nothing to do with my broken ribs. The doctor didn't move for 3 full seconds. Then he said, very quietly, "Get out." My mother blinked. "Excuse me?" "Get out of my hospital," he said, louder now. His hands were shaking. "Security will escort you out. We'll handle this another way." She opened her mouth to argue, but 2 security guards were already there, flanking her. Vanessa grabbed her purse, and they left without looking back. I heard my mother's heels clicking down the hallway, fading into nothing. That's when I started crying. Not from the pain, from the understanding that I'd always known, but never wanted to admit. I was disposable to her. I always had been. I don't remember the surgery. I remember the dreams, though. Dark water closing over my head. Voices calling my name, but none of them familiar. A hand reaching down, but always just out of reach. When I finally opened my eyes, the room was dim and quiet. Golden hour light filtered through the blinds. For a moment, I thought I was alone. Then I saw him. A man sitting in the chair beside my bed, his head bowed like he was praying or sleeping. He was older, maybe mid-50s, with silver threading through his dark hair and deep lines around his eyes. He wore a faded denim jacket and his hands were rough, scarred across the knuckles like he'd spent a lifetime working with them. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. He must have heard me shift because his eyes opened immediately. Gray eyes, kind eyes. He leaned forward and poured water into a plastic cup, held the straw to my lips without saying a word. "Who are you?" I finally managed. He smiled, just a little, sad around the edges. "My name's Vincent. Well, that's complicated." I glanced around the room, looking for my mother, for anyone I recognized. There was a vase of daisies on the windowsill, a blanket draped over my legs that smelled like lavender. Vincent saw me searching. "She's not coming back, Eleanor." Hearing my name in his voice felt strange, familiar somehow. "How do you know my name?" He reached for something on the side table and held it up. My medical chart. I squinted at the writing, still blurry from the anesthesia, but one line came into focus. "New legal guardian, Vincent Marsh." My heart stuttered. "I don't understand." Vincent set the chart down and clasped his hands together. He looked like he was choosing his words very carefully. "The hospital contacted Child Protective Services after your mother left. They couldn't perform surgery without consent, so they got an emergency court order. I was contacted because—" He trailed off. "Because why?" I pressed. My head was spinning. None of this made sense. He met my eyes. "Because I'm your father, Eleanor." The machines around me beeped steadily. Somewhere down the hall, a baby was crying. Vincent's face blurred as tears filled my vision. "That's impossible," I whispered. "My father's dead. My mom said he died before I was born." "She lied." His voice cracked. "I didn't die, sweetheart. She took you from me when you were 6 months old. I've been looking for you ever since." The room tilted. 17 years. 17 years of being told I had no father, that I was unwanted, that I was too much trouble. And here he was, real, solid, looking at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. "What would you have done if you discovered everything you'd been told was a lie?" Before I could ask more, before I could process any of it, a nurse came in to check my vitals. Vincent stepped back, but he didn't leave. He stayed right there in the corner, watching over me like he was afraid I'd disappear if he looked away. The nurse smiled at me. "You're one lucky girl. Your dad hasn't left your side since the surgery. 16 hours he's been here." 16 hours. My mother couldn't spare 16 minutes. When the nurse left, I looked at Vincent again. Really looked at him. I could see it now. The shape of my nose, the curve of my jaw, the way my hands were built. "Why didn't you find me sooner?" I asked. The question came out harsher than I meant. He flinched, but he didn't look away. "I tried. God, Eleanor, I tried everything. Your mother changed her name, moved across state lines, kept you out of any system I could access. Every lead went cold. Until 3 days ago." "What happened 3 days ago?" His expression darkened. "I got a call from a social worker I'd been in contact with years ago. She saw your name flagged in the system when CPS was contacted. She remembered my case, called me immediately." He leaned forward. "I broke every speed limit getting here. Walked into that hospital and told them I had documentation. DNA records from when you were a baby. Custody papers your mother violated. They fast-tracked the emergency guardianship and I signed every form they put in front of me. You need to subscribe to Deserved Revenge channel because what I'm about to reveal will shock you. Hit that subscribe button now." "You signed forms to become responsible for a dying stranger," I said quietly. "Not a stranger." His voice was firm. "My daughter." "You've never been a stranger to me, Eleanor. Not for one single day. Something in me broke open. All those years of cold shoulders and forgotten birthdays and being called it on a hospital gurney. And here was this man, this stranger who wasn't a stranger at all, who'd spent 16 hours at my bedside, who'd driven across state lines, who'd fought through legal systems and bureaucratic nightmares just to make sure I didn't die alone. I started crying again, ugly, gasping sobs that hurt my stitches. Vincent stood up, hesitated for just a moment, then sat on the edge of my bed and carefully, so carefully, pulled me into his arms. He smelled like coffee and rain, and something earthy I couldn't name. "I've got you now," he whispered into my hair. "I've got you, and I'm never letting go again." For the first time in my life, I believed someone. But there was still so much I didn't know, so many questions clawing at my throat. Why did my mother take me? What had happened between them? And what would happen now that he was back? I pulled away just enough to look at him. "She's going to fight this, isn't she? My mother. She's not going to just let you take me." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Let her try." There was something dangerous in his voice, something protective and fierce. "She abandoned you in a hospital, told doctors to let you die. There isn't a judge in the country who'd side with her now." I wanted to feel relieved, but I knew my mother. I knew how she operated. Control was everything to her, and I'd just been taken out of her control. "She's going to make this hell," I said. "Then we'll go through hell together," Vincent replied. "But you're not going back to her, Eleanor. Not ever." The certainty in his voice should have comforted me. And it did. But it also terrified me, because I knew what my mother was capable of when she felt slighted. I'd watched her destroy people for far less than this. What would she do when she found out I had a father? That he'd taken legal guardianship? That I was, for the first time in my life, protected? The heart monitor beeped steadily beside me. Vincent squeezed my hand. Outside the window, the sun finally set, and the room filled with shadows. Somewhere in the city, my mother was planning her next move, and I had no idea what fresh nightmare was about to unfold. I spent 3 more days in that hospital bed watching my entire world reshape itself. Vincent never left. He slept in the chair beside me, brought me books from the hospital gift shop, and talked to me about everything and nothing. Small things at first, safe things. He told me about his work as a carpenter, how he built custom furniture in a workshop 2 states away. He showed me photos on his phone of pieces he'd made, tables with inlaid patterns, chairs carved from single pieces of wood, a rocking horse for a client's granddaughter. His hands were always moving when he talked, sketching invisible shapes in the air. I could see the calluses on his palms, the wood stain that never quite washed out from under his nails. These were hands that built things, hands that created instead of destroyed, the opposite of everything I'd known. On the 4th day, the doctor cleared me for discharge. I could go home, he said, though I'd need weeks of rest and follow-up appointments. Vincent helped me into a wheelchair, even though I insisted I could walk. "Humor me," he said gently. "I've waited 17 years to take care of you. Let me have this." So I let him wheel me through those sterile hallways, past the nurses' station where everyone smiled at us, past the waiting room where I'd nearly bled out while my mother chose a spa day over my life. The automatic doors slid open and cool air hit my face. Freedom, or something like it. Vincent's truck was old, a faded blue Ford with rust spots and a cracked windshield, but it was clean inside. He'd put a pillow on the passenger seat for me, adjusted everything so I'd be comfortable. As he pulled out of the parking lot, I realized I had no idea where we were going. "Where do you live?" I asked. "About 4 hours north," he said. "Little town called Riverside. Population 2,000. Quiet. Safe." 4 hours away from everything I'd ever known. Away from my mother. Away from Vanessa. away from the house where I'd spent 17 years feeling like a ghost. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something I barely recognized: relief. We drove in comfortable silence for a while. The city gave way to suburbs, then to farmland, then to forest. I watched the landscape change through the window, my reflection staring back at me. I looked different somehow, smaller, younger, like I'd shed a skin I didn't know I'd been wearing. "Can I ask you something?" I said finally. Vincent glanced at me. "Anything." "Why did she take me from you?" His hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sighed, long and heavy. "Your mother and I were young when we met. Too young, probably. I was 22, working construction, barely making rent. She was 20, beautiful, ambitious. She had plans, big plans. I wasn't part of them." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "When she got pregnant, she was furious. Saw it as a derailment of everything she wanted. I begged her to keep you. Promised I'd do whatever it took. We got married at a courthouse, and I thought maybe we could make it work." The road curved through dense pine trees. Sunlight flickered through the branches. "For the first 6 months, it was hard, but we managed. I worked double shifts. She stayed home with you, but she resented every second of it. I'd come home and find you crying in your crib, unchanged for hours. She'd be in the other room watching TV, ignoring you. I started taking you to work with me when I could. You'd sleep in a carrier on my back while I hammered and sawed. My crew thought it was hilarious, called you my little foreman." A smile ghosted across his face, sad and distant. "Then one day I came home and you were both gone. No note, no explanation. Just empty rooms and your stuffed rabbit left on the floor." My throat tightened. I remembered that rabbit. Pink, with one ear shorter than the other. I'd had it until I was 10, until my mother threw it away during one of her purges. "I filed missing persons reports," Vincent continued. "Hired a private investigator I couldn't afford. Burned through every resource I had. She'd covered her tracks perfectly. Changed her name from Rebecca Marsh to Diana Hartwell. Moved to a different state. Got new documents. Made it look like you'd never existed in my life." "How is that even legal?" I asked. He laughed bitterly. "It's not. But proving it required money I didn't have and lawyers I couldn't access. By the time I scraped together enough to file for custody, the trail had gone completely cold. Years passed. I never stopped looking, but the leads dried up. Until 3 days ago when that social worker called. The pieces were falling into place now. My mother's paranoia about documents. The way she never let me have a birth certificate or passport. How she'd homeschooled me until high school specifically to keep me out of any system. She'd been hiding me, not protecting me, hiding me like stolen property. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know. Do you think Eleanor's mother deserves a second chance, or has she gone too far? And if these stories move you, subscribe, because you won't believe what happens when they finally face each other. "She told me you were dead," I whispered. "Told me you died in a construction accident before I was born. That you never even knew about me." Vincent's jaw clenched so hard, I could see the muscle jump. "Of course she did. Easier than explaining why she stole you." We drove for another hour before Vincent pulled off the highway into a rest stop. He bought us sandwiches and coffee from a vending machine, and we sat at a picnic table overlooking a small lake. The water was mirror still, reflecting clouds and sky. Birds called from the trees. It was the most peaceful place I'd ever been. "I need to tell you something," Vincent said, unwrapping his sandwich but not eating it. "Your mother's going to come for you. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but she will. She doesn't like losing control." "I know," I said. He looked at me, surprised. "You're not scared?" I considered that. Was I scared? Yes. Terrified, actually. But something else was there too. Something harder. I'm more angry than scared, I admitted. 17 years she made me feel worthless, like I was a burden she was graciously tolerating, and the whole time I had a father who wanted me, who'd been looking for me. Vincent reached across the table and took my hand. You were never a burden, Eleanor. You were a gift I had stolen from me. And now that I have you back, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. Do you think 17 years can ever truly be recovered? Tell me in the comments what you would do in Eleanor's position. The drive to Riverside took us through towns so small they barely had stoplights. Vincent pointed out landmarks as we went. The diner where he got breakfast every Sunday, the hardware store where he bought his supplies, the library that doubled as a community center. It was nothing like the city I'd grown up in. No skyscrapers or traffic or anonymity, just trees and streams and people who probably knew each other's names. His house sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by oak trees and wildflowers. It was small, a cabin really, with a wraparound porch and wind chimes hanging from the eaves. The workshop stood separate from the house, a larger building with broad windows and a sliding barn door. Vincent parked and came around to help me out. I stood there for a moment just looking. This was home now, this quiet, beautiful place that smelled like pine and fresh-cut grass. It's not much, Vincent said, suddenly uncertain. But it's yours now, too. I can fix up the spare room however you want. Paint it, get new furniture, whatever you need. I turned to him, this man who'd waited 17 years, who'd signed papers to save a daughter he'd been separated from since infancy, who'd brought me to his home and offered me everything without asking for anything in return. It's perfect, I said, and meant it. He smiled, relieved, and led me inside. The interior was exactly what I expected. Warm wood everywhere, handmade furniture, bookshelves crammed with novels and carpentry manuals. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Photos hung in simple frames, landscapes mostly, a few of Vincent with people I assumed were friends. And on the mantel, in a place of honor, a single photo of a baby. Me, 6 months old, laughing at something off camera, held in the arms of a younger Vincent who looked at me like I hung the moon. You kept my picture, I whispered. He came to stand beside me. I kept everything, your hospital bracelet, your first onesie, that rabbit you loved. I couldn't let go. Some part of me always believed I'd find you again. The tears came before I could stop them. Vincent pulled me into a hug and I buried my face in his shirt and cried for everything I'd lost and everything I'd found. We stood there for a long time, holding each other, while the wind chimes sang on the porch and the sun moved across the sky. When I finally pulled away, Vincent showed me to my room. It was small but bright, with a window overlooking the woods and a bed covered in a quilt that looked handmade. I'll let you rest, he said. We can talk more later. About school, about your things at your mother's house, about everything. But for now, just rest. I nodded and he left, closing the door softly behind him. I sat on the bed and looked around. This was mine. This room, this house, this life. For the first time ever, I was wanted. But even as I thought it, my phone buzzed. I'd almost forgotten I had it. The screen lit up with a text from an unknown number. I opened it. You think you've won. You think running away with some man who claims to be your father changes anything. You're still mine, Eleanor. You'll always be mine. And when I'm done, he'll wish he'd never found you. See you soon. Mom. My hands shook. The phone slipped from my fingers and landed on the quilt. She knew. Of course she knew. And she was coming. I should have told Vincent immediately, should have shown him the text and let him handle it, but something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the need to prove I wasn't the helpless girl she'd always made me feel like. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. I was so tired of being afraid. So I deleted the text, turned off my phone, and lay down on that soft bed in that quiet room. Outside, birds sang. Inside, my heart hammered. My mother was coming. And when she arrived, everything Vincent and I were building would be tested. But for now, for this one fragile moment, I let myself believe in safety. I let myself believe I was home. The sun set slowly, painting the walls gold and orange. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt the smallest flutter of something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. But hope is a dangerous thing when you're being hunted. And my mother had always been an exceptional hunter. 3 days later, she arrived. I was in the workshop with Vincent, watching him sand a table leg when I heard the car. A sleek black sedan, out of place on the gravel road. It stopped in front of the house, and she stepped out. My mother. Diana Hartwell, formerly Rebecca Marsh. She wore a white pantsuit and sunglasses, her hair perfect, her expression unreadable. Vanessa climbed out of the passenger side, scrolling through her phone. Vincent saw them, and his entire body went rigid. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. We walked out to meet them. My mother removed her sunglasses and looked at me like I was a disappointing purchase she was considering returning. "Eleanor," she said. Not sweetly, not angrily, just flat. "It's time to come home." "This is home," I said. My voice shook, but I held my ground. Her smile was knife-sharp. "You're a child. You don't get to decide where home is." "She's 17, Vincent said. "And she has a voice. You should try listening to it for once." My mother's gaze shifted to him, and I saw the contempt there, the disgust. "Vincent Marsh, still playing the hero, I see. Tell me, how long did it take you to convince the hospital you were anything more than a deadbeat who abandoned his family?" "I never abandoned anyone," Vincent said evenly. "You stole my daughter and spent 17 years lying to her. But that ends now." Vanessa looked up from her phone, finally interested. "Wait, this is your dad? Mom said he was dead." "Mom says a lot of things," I replied. My mother's composure cracked just slightly. "Get in the car, Eleanor. We're leaving." "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. She blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. "I'm staying here, with my father." Her laugh was cold. "Your father? He's a stranger. I'm the one who raised you, fed you, kept a roof over your head. You owe me." "I don't owe you anything," I said. "You left me to die in a hospital. You called me it. You chose a spa day over emergency surgery. That's not a mother. That's a warden I finally escaped from." The mask fell away completely then. Her face twisted into something ugly, something venomous. "You ungrateful little—" "That's enough." Vincent stepped forward, putting himself between us. "You need to leave, now." My mother's eyes narrowed. "I have legal custody. You forged those documents. I'll have you arrested for kidnapping." "Try it," Vincent said calmly. "I have DNA evidence, witness testimony from hospital staff, and records of your abandonment. You're the one who's going to lose here, Rebecca." Hearing her real name seemed to stun her. She recovered quickly, but I saw the flash of panic. She was losing control, and she knew it. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I will fight you in every court in this country." "Then fight," Vincent replied. "But you won't win, and Eleanor will never be yours again." My mother stared at me one last time. I expected anger. I got something worse. Disappointment. Like I'd failed her by choosing to live. Then she turned, got back in her car, and drove away. Vanessa followed without a word, still on her phone. The dust settled. The birds started singing again. Vincent turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded, though I was shaking. "She's going to come back." Probably, he agreed. But we'll be ready. Before this story ends, I need you to do something. Subscribe right now, because the next time someone's family turns on them, you'll want to see how they fight back. Don't miss it. And we were. Over the following weeks, Vincent hired a lawyer. We filed for permanent custody. We built a case so airtight that even my mother's expensive legal team couldn't crack it. She fought, of course, dragged us through depositions and hearings, tried to paint Vincent as unstable, me as brainwashed. But the evidence was overwhelming: the hospital records, the testimonies, the years of documented searching. In the end, the judge ruled in our favor: full custody to Vincent. My mother was allowed supervised visitation if I chose to accept it. I didn't. I never saw her again. Vanessa reached out once, months later, asking if I was okay. I told her I was better than okay. I was free. I graduated high school in Riverside, went to college, learned carpentry from Vincent, built a life I never imagined possible. And every year on the anniversary of that terrible accident, Vincent and I go to a lake, the same one we stopped at on the drive to Riverside, and we sit in silence, grateful for the second chances we were given. I learned something through all of this, something I carry with me always. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you're dying. It's who fights for you when the world says you're not worth fighting for. My mother gave birth to me, but Vincent? Vincent gave me life. And that made all the difference. I'm reading and replying to every comment under this post, so tell me, have you ever had to choose between biology and real love? Share your story below. And if this moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Deserved Revenge, because everyone deserves to hear stories where the good people finally win. Moral lesson: true family is not determined by blood or obligation, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to show up when it matters most. The people who truly deserve your loyalty are those who choose you, fight for you, and see your worth even when others abandon you. Sometimes the greatest act of strength is walking away from those who hurt you and embracing those who heal you.